Okay, let me just see if it's running. Okay. Good morning. I think it still is.
Yes.
Today we've got Sandra Dickson from Stop COCT. And welcome, Sandra. It's nice to have you on the show for a little bit of information, and especially stuff regarding the city of Cape Town and what they're up to. Tell us a little bit about how you came to be the Sandra of Stop COCT. Where did it all start?
It all started late 2017 when the city wanted to introduce a drought charge during the drought. Um, the drought charge in itself could have been accepted by the people. However, the fact that it was linked to our property values, that didn't go off well with any Cape Townian. So we started a group, Stop COCT. I picked the name like real quick. I get a lot of criticism because of the name. We picked the name real quick because we started our campaign within 2 days.
Sure.
We started the group on the 1st of or 2nd of December, and on 5 December we were up full and running.
Sure.
So we didn't have the luxury of planning what we were going to do.
Really.
What motivated most of the people were the increases of the city of Cape Town on our utility bills. And this additional levy, which was going to be put on top of our water tariffs, and that happened even after the city took away our 6 kilolitres of free water. So the first 6 kilolitres of water was taken away. Then the city started to charge us 4 rands per kilolitre. And then they wanted to slap, at that stage, they wanted to slap that drought charge on it. So we started a huge campaign, and the city had a public call for participation on this decision. And we sent the city 61,000 comments from the public during that period, which was over a December, which then resulted on the 18th of January for the city scrapping the drought charge. However, what the city did off its own bat was immediately, seconds after they scrapped the drought charge, they replaced it one-sidedly with a complete new water tariff structure. They introduced the fixed basic charge, which we dubbed the pipe levy, and the city basically went overboard. So that is where the public feels that they got a slap in the face at that time, because the city so-called listened to the 61,000 people and then within seconds disregarded the whole thing by replacing it with something worse, something else that was a lot worse. So that was when the level 5 to level 1 at the time water tariff system, as well as the water restriction levels, was masterminded by the city, and the water tariffs and the water restrictions were linked. So at present, if you are on level 3 water restrictions, you pay level 3 water tariffs. Now currently, we are at level 1 water restrictions. Now how that came about, during this past budget, the city just renamed level 3 to level 1, but they didn't change the tariffs going along with it. So in effect, at present, the city is claiming we are paying less. We are on level 1, but we are actually still on level 3 because of the renaming.
And also of the cost. So we're paying level 3 costs where we should be paying level 1 cost.
According to their system, according to the way the water tariffs were devised. So at present, since the 1st of September, actually a little bit before that, our waters exceed our dams exceed the 85% level full, which should have immediately got the city to look at the water tariffs, because there's a directive from DWS, the central water body in South Africa. In 2017-18, DWS brought out a directive that if the Western Cape dams were more than 85% full, that all water restrictions would be lifted. So the city basically came out and said, Well, they cannot do it because we are not on a hydrological boundary, and they just cannot do anything. So we had and still have quite a campaign to get the city to actually drop the last water levels. But now we also know why they're not dropping it, because going from level 1 to level 0 will give us a 55 cents decrease per kiloliter. So it's basically immaterial. As far as water restrictions are concerned, if they go from level 1 to level 0, which the city calls no restrictions, there will still be some restrictions, but at this stage, the restrictions will benefit residents mostly, because most of the restrictions we have currently has got to do with residents watering their gardens, car washes, and small water users. Because the big water users like stadiums, sports fields, uh, government um, government land, the restrictions are not are waived for them as it is at present. So it's quite a problem, I think, for the city, because they weaved themselves into a corner by renaming from level 3 to level 1, and thereby taking away their room for movement as far as the water tariffs are concerned. Now, okay, during the drought, the city was real quick to change our tariffs and the water restriction levels when they started doing it. They also at that time started very late. They waited till the dams were critical before they actually brought in the severe water restrictions. And they mostly used tariffs to stop people from using
Additional
too
water, too
much
much
water.
water, yes.
Now, a solution to this whole thing, the city has got a perfect solution to meet the citizens halfway with this issue. They've got leverage to do so. The one is the free basic water that they took away, the 6 kiloliters. They can give some of that back to people that actually pay for water. They can scrap the water levy, or they can reduce the water levy. If they don't want to scrap it, they can at least meet the citizens halfway and reduce the water levy. And then lastly, they can revise the entire water tariff structure. So here I've given the city quite a lot of options, and we call on the city to, before the next budget, to actually do this and revise the water tariff system. The city is currently busy doing the new budget, which comes into effect on the 1st of July 2021. So it is the perfect time for the city to open up this whole water tariff issue and put it out for public comment. We prefer them to put it out for public comment as an own issue and not lump it in with a budget call for public participation in March. Because normally the water issues are embedded in this huge budget, which is like a heap of paper that much, which the city decides on during the council meeting when the budget is passed, and the water issue is like somewhere hidden
between.
inside.
And you lose focus as well, because there's so many other things that you forget about this little thing that you have to concentrate on, which is basically water and electricity, which is the two big things for the normal consumer.
Yes. So that is why, if the city had any concern for its citizens, it would say, like a mature adult government organization, they would say, let's relook at the whole thing. But what they will have to do to come to the party is that the city will have to disclose their actual costs for the water department. So we need to know, how does the city arrive at 18 rands per kiloliter? How does this water structure work?
And also, if I can just intervene, a lot of these piping, and it's the same with Telcom and Vodacoms and all these things, the stuff already exists. It has been existing for years and years. All they need to do is sometimes maintain these things. And if they use sometimes quality stuff, and we know we've got older homes and stuff like that, where they use perhaps copper piping. Some of those copper piping are still existing in certain homes with no problems, as it were. So these piping costs that they charge us, maybe I'm just throwing it out here. It could be for the salaries of the people that's working there, but that has already been budgeted for.
But up to 2017, the city budgeted for the maintenance and we paid for it consumption based. And the Municipal Act says that electricity and water should be consumption based. Um, it does allow for some surcharges that the city can put on. However, it does also say that the city has to take into account affordability. Now, that is where the city fails miserably. They've never done, as far to my knowledge, an affordability study on their water tariffs and their electricity tariffs. So, and with what we get on an hourly basis on Stop COCT, the group that I represent, is that the people complain they can't pay their bills. This what the city is doing at the moment with electricity. If you fall behind with your rates bill or your water bill, the city goes, after you've made a payment plan and you default on that payment plan, they go and deduct from around 50% to 90% of your electricity prepaid purchases. So we know of some people that if they buy 100 rands worth of electricity, 90 rands get taken away for arrear debts and they get 10 rands worth of electricity. Now, where's the humanity or the humaneness about that?
And if I can just chirp in here also, is that if you as a city, because the city, I feel, is managing the city on our behalf. They are supposed to see that the citizens of the city are catered for, the services are provided, and they're managing this. We give them that behest to manage the city on our behalf. But if they start charging the people as if they are a company making profit, a city shouldn't be making profit. They should put a little bit away aside for planning for the next 3 years, but they should literally, if you've got a good city, they should be running in a default all the time with money that they're getting. So it means that they are spending that money within the citizenship of the Western Cape or whatever city they're representing. And unfortunately, our city seems to want surplus of money all the time, that they have in surplus, but it's not benefiting any of the citizens. It might be benefiting a few small individuals, but the people on the ground that need this help are not getting it. How do you feel about that statement, Sandra?
Well, basically, if we go back to the water, with these punitive tariffs when we were on level 6B and level 6, at that time, the city made about R1 billion worth of surplus. Now, we track that every single month and we ask the city about that. Then one month, we saw that the billion of surplus was all of a sudden gone.
Sure.
So we started querying this. Now, where
happened?
is it? Then we got told by the CFO of the city that they had a lot of bad debt and that they wrote a lot of bad debt off. Now, my understanding of a financial statement is that there's a special account for bad debt where any company makes provision for bad debt. And to me, it was absolutely mind-boggling that how could they write bad debt off actual revenue? I'm not an accountant, but it just does not make any sense to me. We queried this quite strongly at the city, and almost as a direct result, I got blocked from the city of Cape Town.
Sure.
I cannot send any emails to a city server that says capetown.gov.
Sure.
We are blocked off every single server because we were told at the time, the last friendly email that we got was where the city said, this executive said to us, but they don't have time to look or answer these silly questions. Okay, he
Sure.
didn't use the word silly,
Yeah.
but to answer these
Something to
questions
that effect.
from the public. And if we want to know what happened with the writing off, we can wait for the city's annual statements,
Sure.
and we can have a look in there.
And who does these people actually think they are? This is the question. They're supposed to represent this very public that's asking them these questions. They need to get a special media or person there that will answer these questions on behalf of the public, because they represent they a public body, an entity, as it were.
I've been inside an office where I spoke to the people, or some of the people that take the major decisions around water and electricity. And it was so evident to me that they have no idea what's going on outside their windows. In fact, the one executive said to me that they had a braai 3 weeks before. This was during the drought. They had a private braai, and somebody actually came to ask him about the tariffs and everything that we were doing in his private capacity. And he just said to the guy, I don't talk work at home, which I could fully understand.
Yes.
You don't talk work at home. But if this guy's friends were questioning what the decisions that they took, that basically made me think the executives at the city have no clue what's going on. And I, typical me, then said to him, but why don't you get out of this office and go and speak to real people? They eyeballed each other, like this crazy woman. What is she saying?
Yes.
And that was the end of it.
Sure.
So the city is entirely removed from the man in the street. Sure. And the city also, I read the other day in one of their documentation that they distinguish between recognized informal settlements and non-recognized informal settlements. It still sticks into my mind, what's the difference? But so do they do some planning? Do they give some services to the recognized informal settlements? And the conveniently non-recognized ones, like Dunoon's expansion and Kraaifontein's expansion, are they ignored? Is that why they're ignored? Sure. Is that why LE sits outside and watch how the shacks are being put up? Now, I want to make it clear that as far as the informal settlements go, it is of the city's own doing that it's happening. Because over the past 10 years, the city sent back over 10 billion rands to National Treasury, which was a grant earmarked to service land and to build low-cost housing, mass low-cost housing for these informal settlements. Now, so I'm asking myself, if the city had sent back so much money over 10 years, isn't that part of the reason why there's no proper service land for new informal settlements, and why the people have taken the law to a large extent into their own hands, and they put up shacks just where they want to put them up?
Something I just want to mention as well to you. I think in the old system, and I'm just going back, and I don't want to glorify apartheid or anything like that, but they had a specific plan to build certain areas up and provide sort of decent housing, where you got a structured house, not a small house, it's a livable house, where you had a kitchen, you had a dining room. Some of them had only one bedroom, some of them had two, and some had three, depending on the amount of family structure that you have. And then they had a decent toilet and bathroom. Nowadays, people have a shower, extra as a shower, and so on. But those were planned units, like you said, service land. They would make service land available for these people, put you on a housing list, and you'd fall in as your name came up. Every 50 houses of every 100 houses that they create, they would send, okay, you can now go see if you want the house or whatever. And most of the people just took the homes that they got. And those planning has gone to the pot, to the sewage, because you don't get that anymore. You do get these RDP homes that, in my opinion, is a bunch of crap. People are going to be satisfied with it for a year or two, But afterwards, I drove past one of them. The lady had to go outside and iron pants outside because there wasn't enough space in the house. You cannot live and expect people to be happy with
Now,
those type of
now
things.
this what you are sketching here is culminating from 10 years of doing nothing. The city does severe town planning in the areas that they think they control. I will use you an example. Close by to where I live, there is a huge development called Hazendal going up. Every time I go past there, I see electricity boxes putting up, and a new site goes up, and new building goes up, and it is a development of billions of rands planned to a T. Then I drive to Kraaifontein. It's called Marula, the Marula Housing Project. It never happened, even though the city does say that the services what was put in. I cannot see any proof of it, and I challenge the city to show me where the services are. And at present, over the last three to 4 months, that whole area has been overrun by shacks. So how is the city now, afterwards, after the fact, going to put in roads, taps, and sewage after the shacks had already been built? So my question is now, where is the town planning for Kraaifontein? Why do you do Kraaifontein in a place like Hazendal and in the CBD where all those billions of rands of skyscrapers are going up? Town planning gets done there very conveniently, but in areas where the real people are, there's zero town planning. There people, I mockingly say, is that there in Kraaifontein is a rapid new development unaided by the city.
Sure.
So to me, it's just wrong. The city has got their
priorities wrong.
Their priorities back to front. Right. Then the city plays the blame game. Because every time I talk to anybody that's got anything to do with the city and the political party that controls them, they say, oh, there was a court case that says we're not allowed to evict people anymore. Right. But if you go into the actual court case, the court case strongly speaks about the manner in which the city evicted the people. The city goes into an area where there's illegal shacks once a month, once in 6 weeks, once in every 3 months. That was during this past year, before COVID-19. Then they would go and demolish the shacks. They did it in such a humane way that it hit the news headlines.
Inhumane, actually. So
inhumane.
Yeah, yeah.
Inhumane. That it hit the news headlines almost worldwide.
Sure.
So any court that had evidence like that in front of them had no option but to choose the side of the people done in. But the court did not nullify the PI Act. The court said the PI Act still stands. A shack that's illegally erected needs to be removed within 48 hours. It's been like that for the past 25 years, ever since the PI Act came in. So the city going in after a couple of months or even weeks to demolish shacks, they were contravening a clear written act in our country. Now they are told to be preemptive, and in other words, prevent
the election of the shacks in the first place.
In the first place.
And not only that, by doing that, they will then be creating jobs as well. So basically you can get somebody there that sits on these lands because you know it's a potential place where people...
But it gets me back to, I don't think the solution is stopping the people from doing it. I'll get now to why I think the people are doing it. It is basically exposing the city's lack of planning. I studied an MBA in the 80s. That's how long ago? Like 30 years ago.
Long time.
Then I read, or we were warned about rapid urbanization. Everybody knows that urbanization would take place. again, because of a lack of proper town planning, the city never ever addressed urbanization. Yes, they address if somebody moves from Johannesburg and they come and buy a property in Cape Town, those people are catered
Right.
for. But we've had freedom of movement since 1994. So people have the right to move. And why are they moving to Cape Town? Because the city of Cape Town boasts being the best run city in the world. They boast the best services. They boast the lowest job vacancies. So any person that hasn't got a job will go to a place where they think they can find a job.
Absolutely.
But it's not true.
Yeah.
The people come here and
There's nothing
and
for
the
them.
jobs are not
Yeah.
here.
I just want to touch on that point quickly that you made earlier. According to them, according to why they're taking the shacks off, is that they've normally, and you'd probably correct me on this one, is that they normally have plans for something that's going to be erected on there. Either it would be a clinic or something, or
It's always plans, but the plans aren't executed.
never.
The city has got a history. If we look at tenders and plans, again, I can use the water plans. At the time when they raised the water tariffs and instituted the levy, they started by saying it's to augment our water supply. Till this very minute that I'm talking to you, the city hadn't augmented a drop of water additional. We are still getting our water from the same dams through the same pipes, and we have the same volume of water available to us. And so if we look at the way tenders are given out, the city makes plans, but then it's deferred to the next year, to the next year, to the next year. An example again, Kraaifontein, the Marula housing project, it was hatched, that plan was hatched, I think 4 to 5 or more years ago.
Sure.
Not two bricks were put on top of each other in Kraaifontein.
Sure.
Now, again, to get back to why people are moving onto open land. First, shacks or extensions were in people's backyards. And it took about 10 years, it seems to me, for most of the backyards to fill up in the poorer areas or your medium class areas. But we've reached a stage now where the backyards are full. So that way of diverting the housing need cannot work anymore. Together with that, with COVID-19, the people lost their jobs and they can't pay their rent anymore. So there's hostility between the landowner and the person living in a backyard. So we've got two reasons now. The backyards are practically full. Secondly, there's obvious animosity between landlords and tenants not being able to pay their rent. And then lastly, which the city puts up front, is political motivations. Now, there are political motivations in this, and there are criminal elements in this, because we hear there's even a word for it, a shack farmer. So that's people that apparently sell a piece of land to somebody, and they say for $1,000, and they say to a person up country, there's a plot of land there by due noon. Give me $1,000, and when you go to Cape Town, that land will be waiting there for you. Now, then comes my question. With the country's intelligence and the law enforcement arm of the city of Cape Town that's more than 2,000 people strong, how can they not identify those criminals and arrest them?
Absolutely.
Why not?
Absolutely.
Why just sit there and play the blame game and say, it's the shack farmers that's giving people land?
But I suppose it's also convenient for them. So it sort of helps them justify certain things.
It's never the city's fault.
Yeah.
That is what is the bottom line of every issue that a ratepayer or a citizen of Cape Town has with the city.
And I'll just
they refuse to be held accountable, and it's never them.
Sandra, I'd just like to come in here a little bit quickly. You mentioned something about COVID-19, and especially with the backyard dwellers not being able to afford their landlord's rental. But often normal people, like me and you, just owning our own homes and so on, a lot of these people have lost their jobs in COVID 19. So there's a lot of pressure on families now. So, in other words, the income of those families have also been reduced within the home. But the city is not coming to the party. The city is rather, like you said, they make arrangements now that you can pay off. And also, just to add on to this, if you as a city see that you have much bigger defaulters on your system, you should know, listen, there's a problem here. We should come to the party and give them some kind of rebate. You know, once again, in the past, there was something called what they call subsidies, and a lot of these things were subsidized. So even if the water goes up, or in other words, say for instance, we had a drought, so our rate would be like you mentioned earlier, it's 5 rand or 18 rand per kiloliter. The city would charge us 10 rand per kiloliter, but the actual cost of those kiloliter is perhaps 6 rand. So you're paying 3 rand extra, but when the drought comes and the rate is now 18 rand, you have built up enough surplus to subsidize the rest of that money, the 18 rand, so you still pay the 10 rand. You know, so those are the type of planning that we would expect from the city. And I mean, I'm not like you mentioned, I'm not an accountant or a professor or something, but I can see the reasoning behind something like that.
Financially, the city sucks every cent out of their revenue generating streams. So no money is kept specifically for
subsidizing.
For that, like the way you're saying now.
Okay.
But why I'm hesitating in what I'm saying, that money sits in the form of 18 billion in cash money in the city's bank accounts.
Sure.
So the city had been sucking out money from the services divisions to such an extent that it is sitting in bank accounts. The bottom line is it's not available for service delivery. And that is the root of the way the city is being run at the moment. The root of the problem is that service delivery is no longer a priority in the city. What is a priority is to suck every cent they can from the revenue generating streams and to put it aside.
Sure. And it doesn't even make sense because, you know, there's something that I just sort of want to mention is that if you have a happy citizen, if you have some person that's happy, there will be so little strife. You know, people will be happy. They'll let the city do their thing, what they need to do. Well, but the people are struggling, and not only the poor, the semi-middle class people are struggling as well.
Let me put that poor and middle class into perspective, because many people does not understand the financial difference between the two. We have a large section of the population all over South Africa which get free basic services. Now the city claims at budget time that the budget is poor orientated and that they're taking money from the rich areas and they're spending it in the poor areas, and the people that support them actually fall for that lie. Because as far as I'm concerned, and as we are going through the budgets, we don't see evidence of that. Now, as far as the free basic services are concerned, central government comes to the party and gives the city, all municipalities, various grants towards the free basic services. So that is one category that is taken care of, not well enough, but taken care of by grants and various other ways that money is generated to supply free basic services. But then you have the other people, and it starts at a salary of 7,500 and up, and people that live in a house that's worth more than 400,000. Now that includes a RDP house, because RDP houses RDP houses are being valued by the City of Cape Town over 500,000. Right? So that includes RDP houses. So now we have a working class or an assumed working class that pays rates, water, electricity, refuse removal, sanitation. Those people are paying that. And what you've been mentioning is that a lot of those people are families that lost their jobs, that were very hard hit by COVID-19. The only thing that the city or help that the city offers is, if you fell behind, come and talk to us and we will make an arrangement to pay off your bill. So all of a sudden, this family that were in good standing are now indebted to pay off a utility bill, a municipal bill. So that, to me, there the city fails with their COVID-19 approach like 100%. Secondly, the people that do get help are people that go and register as indigent, and those are the people that earn below 7,500 per month. But the city has made it so difficult to register as an indigent. You have to provide so much proof of income and documentation and red tape that on our group, a lot of people tell us it takes about over a year to qualify. To qualify to be an indigent.
Not only that, who wants to be declared an indigent in any
people
case?
Are proud. They don't want
course.
to. Then you get to pensioners. The relief to pensioners. So a pensioner that earns below 17,500 a month, they can apply to the city by the same token to get a rates rebate, which is stepped. So if you earn 17,500, you get zero rebate. But if you earn, say, argument's sake, below 5,000 rands per month, you can get up to 90% rebate on your rates account. Again, the city had made it so difficult that they expect an old tannie of 80 years to go and stand in the queues and apply for this rebate, which is certainly not easy. It's easier to get a SASSA grant than to get any rebate from the City of Cape Town.
And one would expect for us, especially for our elderly citizen, that if you qualify on the SASSA system, that automatically this should be fed to the city's accounts as well.
Absolutely.
And say, listen, this person has reached the tender age of 80, doesn't matter how she earns, on an equal footing, they will benefit with a 10% or 0% rates or whatever the case might be. That would be the proper process to follow. And it's the easier one as well. So there won't be any fraud. Like you said, you don't need any paperwork because SASSA has already done the work.
No. The city drowns in paperwork.
Sure.
Red tape and paperwork. And everything is geared against the citizens. The city, and that is why now to get back as to why is there such a big backlash from the public against the city, is the public don't trust the city. A lot of members of the public are actually so annoyed by the city, or annoyed to such an extent that they would do negative things towards the city. So the bottom line is the city lost the trust and the goodwill of a large portion of Cape Townians.
Of the citizens. Sandra, I know that we can probably sit here till next week and chat about the city. Let us look at what we would suggest, and we, I'd say, as laymen, not as professionals or experts, and we don't know all the technicalities, how the city operates and stuff, but going forward, what do you think the city should do to fix the problems, to fix the trust issues with the citizens? We've got a lot of crime, we've got a lot of homeless people, a lot of begies in Cape Town itself that was put out of Cape Town, don't know where they must go, but there's certain issues that the city just sort of, like you say, it's not their fault and push it there. So if we don't see it, it's not our problem. Going forward, what do you feel maybe on a two-ply question here, what the city should be doing to make the life of the citizens better, and on from the citizen side, a lot of things can be done on their side as well to make things better, to form committee meetings. And I wanted to go there quickly just before you answer that question. Is I read one of your articles that you shared where you say our councillors should have 10 people working under them, which is a sub,
That's
which
the
will
law.
represent, it's a law, but it's not being implemented. I shared that particular post as well. And a lot of people said, no, we don't even know about it. We don't even know who our councillor is for that matter. So there's failures. Going forward, what do you suggest we should do?
In a nutshell, the city should go back to basics. And they should practice good governance for the people, not good governance to the advantage of the city alone. The city needs to be willing to be held accountable, and they should be more transparent.
And also people-centric, if I can just come in
And
there.
people-centric, because the more the city is questioned, the more they close ranks. To such an extent that certain information, we need to make a PIA application.
Sure.
And we found recently that the information given to us via PIA application, which is a legal process, the information is wrong.
Sure.
Right? So the city should really re-look at becoming a service organization, a government organization, and that the people, and recognize that the people paying their salaries are the very people that they are excluding.
And also, if I can just come in, they need to be more transparent.
Yeah, absolutely.
If one asks for something, we need to get they representing us. They need to realize this. Yeah. And just on that thing, and I'm going to mention this quickly, is at one stage, there was two things that happened. That the ANC took over Cape Town. Now, with all these funds and billions of rands that they're saying in surplus, if the ANC takes over tomorrow, that money becomes available to them. So they save, and they save. I'm not saying that it's wrong to save or whatever, but they haven't utilized that money within the communities that they're supposed to use that money in. So you're saving all this money. You could be replaced tomorrow at the drop of a hat. People get dissatisfied with you. The DA administration that runs the city of the Cape Town now becomes an ANC run, or EFF for that matter, or any other group. So basically what happens then is they get control of this money. Now, I know prior to 1994, the Blouberg municipality, they ran almost like a city of Cape Town now. And they accumulated so much wealth that they were on Forbes' list as the richest municipality in Cape Town.
Good heavens.
And when they left, they were fighting like hell because the ANC took over and they formed this uni-city. And all the money needed to be pulled together. And they freaked out because they accumulated all this wealth now. And now suddenly they have to give it off. And they actually went to court and lost the case as well.
The same. However, with a balance of power in Cape Town, at present, the ANC has 46 odd councillors and the DA has got 157 odd councillors on council, and the rest of the parties collectively has about 10 maximum. So as far as the balance of power is concerned, and with what is happening with the Zondo Commission and in the rest of South Africa, the chances of the ANC taking over, I think, is not good. What is good is the other up-and-coming parties. If I'm talking politics now, there's the Good Party, there's Action SA, which is very strong in Guguletto and in the Kailicha and those areas, Durbanville. They're pretty strong. So Action SA, it needs to be watched. And then on the Cape Flats, we have the Cape Coloured Party. So there's three up and coming, I would say, potentially pretty strong parties. So if I may make a prediction, I would expect that the DA will lose their majority and that coalitions will have to be formed. I think that to really get the council in line after the next elections is that community leaders should stand up and stand as independents so that the representation of the community gets to council level. Now, that is what our citizens do not understand, is really how local government works. Now, simply how it works, I'll explain, is that after every municipal election, the councillor is supposed to appoint a ward committee. Now, Cape Town has about 115 wards, and there's about, I don't know how many sub-councils, but a sub-council is a grouping of wards. So each sub-council would have about 3 wards in it. So after the election, typically what happened, if these new political parties want to make a difference, they need to be voted in as a councillor, either a ward councillor or a proportional councillor. Then these councillors form the ward committees, which has 10 people, and those 10 people has to come from blocks of power inside a ward, of which an example is like a strong church group, safety and security groups, environmentalists. So as far as I can make it out, individuals cannot serve on a ward committee. It has to be a representative of some or other registered organization with the city of Cape Town. So even there, the city controls how a ward committee works.
All formed.
And I've had lots of fun the last couple of days actually asking people about the effectiveness of these ward committees. A whole 2 ward committees came back to me and said they're functional, of which one example is Ward 1. And I had very good conversation with those people. The most common answer that we got was, what is a ward committee? Who's my councillor? We don't know. So there the city fails at the very basic link between them and the community.
And Sandra,
and that explains to me why the city is
so
failing.
much problems.
Why there's so much problems.
Sandra, if I can just put it to you, do you think, or don't you think rather, that the government should step in here and start introducing public administration at school level, where people, the very thing that you're explaining now, I don't even know certain aspects of it.
I like that idea. However, with the current monopolizing of power, any effort like that will be monopolized by the strongest party in the area. Because South Africa, even though we have a democracy, our democracy is not working. 90% of South Africa is controlled by one controlling party, and the other 10% is controlled by another controlling party. But the net effect of both is exactly the same. The citizens aren't being looked after. Service delivery is not a priority. On both sides, priority is to feed themselves. And that is why we need to go through a phase at this point in time where community leaders stand up in their wards and stand and be elected so that there's better decision making at council level.
Absolutely. Sandra, I'm going to wrap up at this stage. I'd love to talk to you again at some point in time. I'll see how we go on this one. And if the guests that tune into this media maybe want to follow up with questions and so on, is there any number that they can maybe contact you? And I'm sure there's going to be a couple of questions, maybe just a Gmail account or something that
I'll give out my Voda mail account.
Okay.
It's Sandra DIC at vodamail.co.za.
Okay, and maybe you don't want to give yourself a number. I will implore our audience just to, if they have any queries, Sandra seemed to have so much information. So if you have any queries about the city and how they operate, or you want to maybe make suggestions to her that you can mention in the Stop COCT groups, just drop a email. Thank you. Sandra, thank you so much. It was absolutely fantastic having you on the show. And you are certainly have so much information that one can use and share, you know. And we need good leadership like you. And sadly to say, we actually need people like you in the city of Cape Town itself to guide and to strengthen the city and to actually start implementing people's power at the end of the day.
Because if the city don't educate, somebody needs to do the education of the public, because the public needs to know how government or how their local government works, and they need to know what are the avenues that will allow them to participate, which are the ward committees. Thank you so
Fantastic.
much.
Thanks so much. Okay.